Traders, this week the markets are grappling with a major geopolitical supply shock in the Middle East that is reshaping across multiple asset classes. With direct strikes impacting Iranian infrastructure and threats to the Strait of Hormuz, which is a critical choke point for about 20% of global oil and LNG flows, we're seeing an acute energy risk premium develop, i.e., oil. Here's a chart of the crude oil futures. We are spiking. I've even heard some people calling $150 per barrel. I'd be mindful of that, but it's out there. So this is driving a bullish momentum in domestic energy names such as ExxonMobil, Chevron, Halliburton, and other LNG plays in refineries. So for tech and AI swing traders, higher oil prices raise near-term inflation concerns and potential margin pressure. So this creates a short-term headwind for growth valuations, but also possible rotation opportunities into more defensive tech or cybersecurity names such as CrowdStrike on any broad risk-off moves. So basically, you can see actually, if we look at Crowd this week, I don't know where it went on my chart there. I don't know why that's not there. We had a pretty nice bounce, up 15.3% on the week. So overall, it's kind of what we're looking at. Also, second, the weak February jobs data has intensified stagflation fears, combining softer growth with oil-driven price pressures. This setup challenges Fed rate expectations and typically weighs on higher multiple growth stocks. So watch for a selected swing setups and AI leaders if you're trading AI leaders that really demonstrate earnings resilience. As structural demand may provide support on any dips, but I still don't think AI and tech is the place to be right now. Finally, defense contractors such as LMT, NOC, and RTX are seeing clear tailwinds from elevated security spending outlooks, while safe haven flows support precious metals and some crypto-related type names because crypto kind of popped this past week. We're also going to go over economic data coming up as well as some earnings, but let's get into the charts per usual. Let's start with the SPX, the cash index of the S&P 500 overall. You can see looking at the daily, we closed 2% down on the week. We kind of have a little bit of a rounding top here. We are failing to hold these prior support areas. We close below them. Really what we're looking for right here, this low of 67.20.43, that is going to be very important to watch to see if that holds or if it continues to break down, especially into next week. Otherwise, I would be looking at this low right around here. This 65.21.92 low. That's another important swing low. Overall, the 200 EMA, I think that's in play. Let's look at the cash index for the Nasdaq. This continues to chop and consolidate within this area here. I would really look for this 23.854.03 right here, this swing low. The 200 EMA is starting to catch up. So I would I'd be mindful of initiating any heavy longs right now. We're kind of I think we're in a dicey area. So we could just continue to chop around and not do anything, but I think we have some headwinds ahead of us. Let's go through tech real quick. Again, tech, I don't think is the place to be. I still think Microsoft, we get this gap fill at 367.36. It's a nice little bounce over this supply zone, close above the 21 EMA, but we get a nice top and tail. Maybe it just bounces and chops around here, but right now we're looking for actionable plays. It's not where to be. NVDA also not actionable right now. Apple's also chopping around. I know demand is going off the hook for their Mac minis with Claude and all this stuff. And Apple has their phone and is getting hooked up with Gemini. I know there's a lot of overall tailwinds to it, but short term, it's not the place to be. Amazon, also, I was looking for this gap fill actually above 211. I missed the trade, unfortunately. We ended up getting that gap fill within 2 days. Now it's selling off. Maybe it comes back within this area and continues to chop around and base around this $200 level. But is it actionable right now? No, it's not the place to be. Broadcom, I don't think it's the place to be. It's chopping around. Meta, it's chopping around. You want to look for names that are not chopping around. Netflix might be of interest. Big news last week on Warner Brothers. It kind of chopped around. It's hitting the declining 200 EMA, which starting to flatten this past week. Maybe I would look for a little bit of a pullback. I do have an anchored VWAP from this low here, and I think that area where the anchor VWAP comes up to is $91, basically $92 right now. I think that's an area of interest. Otherwise, maybe against this $90 to gap 85.50-ish, that would be interesting as well. But Netflix might actually start turning around here. So Netflix is of interest, but overall, I still think there are better places to be. Tesla, just slowly grinding lower at a prior support area. Short-term swing traders, again, that's who I'm trying to talk to here. I think there are better places to be. Google continues to hold this $300-ish level. I think it looks like it wants to break lower. 200 EMA around the 265, I don't think is out of hand, to be honest with you. We might just get there. ServiceNow, we got a nice bounce. You could call this a double bottom since it broke this resistance area. I would look for a pullback back to 110, and maybe again it chops around within in this area. But overall, I'd expect some sort of bounce because this has just been an absolute waterfall. And so it found prior support where resistance was right here. So we shouldn't be shocked. Palantir is getting a nice bounce this week simply because of the war. We know where their AI systems in the government are being used for it. So it's not a surprise that it is getting a little push, to be honest with you. But we'll see what actually happens as if it accepts back into this range, or if people are going to start selling. I heard something that there's been a lot of insider selling within this name this week. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but bigger picture it could. Robinhood bounces out of this consolidation zone, accepting back into it. It's not the best look. This might just continue to head on lower, especially if the overall market wants to continue to head lower. Micron at a prior support area. If this breaks, watch out. It might go to 320 next. AMD also at a prior support area, closed below the 200 EMA again. It already undercut this low here, popped up, and it's revisiting again in a very short time frame. Not the best look, in my opinion. TSM looks lower, closed below the 50 EMA. Oracle's chopping around. This does have earnings on Tuesday. I'll show you the earnings calendar shortly. But I think this one is in play this week, depending on what happens with earnings. That'll be very interesting. Adobe is popping, still under the 50. Coin hit the 50, closed below, might get a little selling. MSTR accepting back into this range after breaking out of it. Not the best look. As you can see, it chopped around here, broke out of it, failed near the 50 EMA, near the 50 EMA here, near the 50 EMA here, came back, accepted back in range, and then broke lows, and it consolidated even lower. So I would be mindful of that potential scenario for MSTR to continue on lower. IBM getting a nice little bump here, but overall, still looking on the weaker end. LMT, this is, I think, where we start to have our focus in here. I did have a area of interest. I wanted it to break this high, basically a breakout and the retest. It came back a little bit deeper than I was anticipating, but either way, it is back over this 667 area that I was watching. So LMT looks pretty solid. What you could do is I have an anchor VWAP at this most recent low that came near the 20 EMA. That anchor VWAP was around 661. What I would do if I were you is I would put one there, then set an alert on the anchor VWAP, and that's an area of interest where you can buy on a pullback. Otherwise, you can set an anchor VWAP to this high right here, as it's only 2.95% off the highs. And you can see that the average participant from this high is above water now. So maybe a pullback within this 666 to 660 area with a stop below this 646. So basically like a $20 stop or so. That might be a decent play. Overall, I would be playing this blue box here. That's a 3-day pivot. That's how I'd trade it. But LMT looks pretty solid. NOC also had a nice gap. It could not fill it. It price corrected back to the 8 EMA and then pushed out of it. So looking at the shorter time frame, I almost bought on Friday, but I decided not to initiate any trades over the weekend just because any new trades anyways. But overall, NOC looks pretty good. I would look for a break of Friday's highs for continuation, but I do think any pullbacks within this 746 to 750 area are most likely buyable with the stop below this 734 or so. But personally, I would be doing this 3-day pivot. That's where I would put my stop. GE, it got hit. Down 5.6% on the week. I do think this is an area we could potentially buy against. This swing low, it undercut the 50 and then came back above. So it tagged the 50. Maybe like if you look into the shorter time frame here, if it bounces back into Friday's range and you want it to buy with the stop below this 317.62, maybe 317.61, that might be some interest as a bounce play. However, just be mindful that lows of days, they are common areas to put stop losses. And so that's why lows are commonly hit, is to run those stops. RTX looks pretty solid. This was another name that I was debating on entering. I was looking at it in the afternoon, basically in this nice little pullback area. But again, I decided not to take any trades. But overall, RTX coming into next week, I think is pretty solid as well. You can see the anchor view app from this gap up. It's only 2.2% off the all-time highs. It's looking pretty good. It came back. I've been watching this for a couple of weeks now to see what it does in this consolidation zone. It finally broke out. It came back to retest it, and now it's pushing back out. So I think this might start to uptrend. So we shall see. XOM, I'm still in this. I bought on last Friday. I missed my exit on the freaking gap up on Monday and then held. My stop is holding through the chop. I still think the oil and this whole energy theme for the week is still in place. So I'm still holding my original position. My stop wasn't hit, so I'm just letting it work. I'm not pressing buttons. CVX also looks pretty good, only 1.28% off of all-time highs. Things are still trending upwards. If you want to look at the short term here, I would say any pullback within, if you want to undercut these 30-minute lows to see if we get some support with between the 8 and 21. Maybe you can risk against this daily low here, this pullback here. You could also put the anchor view at from this most recent low, and that's a level of interest there as well. So there's ways that you can manage your risk in this area. You just have to have a plan and then execute it. Halliburton, this is kind of chopping around. I don't think this looks as good as the other names. VLO, MPC, and LNG, these have really been the names to be in, especially last week. So I chose XOM. That wasn't the best name. VLO and MPC, as you can see, this has had a rather nice breakout here and has just been getting, has had a good run overall. And so it is now having, it looks like it's going to have a little bit of a pullback, maybe to that 8 EMA. I would watch for that. And we have to see where price would actually come in and find a bid at. You can't just blindly buy selling. I think this area here, maybe this 220, this is an anchor view at from the actual breakout of this little consolidation here. That might be a level of interest. You can see looking on the daily, it looks like it tagged it, but shorter time frame, it obviously didn't. So I think that would be of interest. If you're a trend trader, if you like your down trend lines, you could always say, hey, here's the high, and you're looking for 3. So once it breaks that down trend line, sets a higher low, you can always look at that as well. MPC, this also has been very strong. Sorry, computer's glitching out here a little bit, especially since it broke this high. It is coming back in, letting time, letting the 8 EMA catch up. I think maybe, above Friday's high, you might be able to buy anything within to Friday or even a tag. I would really like something more so down here in this area, this 211.59 at 210. This is a pivot on gap from Tuesday. This is a level of interest for me. It also has confluence with the 8 EMA. So anything within this area, I think is pretty good. And then maybe you can buy a little dip and set a stop loss of Tuesdays or even Monday's low. That's a potential play out for you there as well. LNG has been on a nice little run here. It broke out of this area. It hit all-time highs, but it also closed at all-time highs as well this week. So that's nice. LNG, Cheniere Energy, that is probably going to keep on rolling. KMI, this looks pretty solid. This is flagging to the short-term 8 EMA. If you want to draw support lines, you can say, hey, there's a resistance coming back and retesting that support. So I would look at the short-term 30-minute time frame to really nail down your entry. Probably really, it wouldn't be such a bad idea if we got an undercut of Friday's lows and then it came back in to reclaim. That might be a pretty interesting setup if it undercut these lows, undercut the 8 EMA, so comes in here, undercuts it, and then comes back within range and goes that way. I think that setup might be pretty decent to play against, especially if you want to put risk against last week's lows of 33.07. So that would be pretty interesting. Or even if it wants to undercut 33.07 for next week, that might be pretty interesting as well. If you're a downtrend person, you can do a downtrend line here. You might be waiting a little bit for it to break that. So maybe it needs to fill that out in a little bit, but we shall see. UPS, I liked UPS last week. I did not get in it, and it got absolutely crushed. What I liked about it was this consolidation area. It undercut it and then closed back within that on Thursday and Friday, but Monday it did nothing but get hit, mostly because of the war, probably, in shipping containers, things like that. FDX looks like it's going to hit the 50 EMA. CME, be mindful of correlation. When market is down, this is typically up. So CME actually looks pretty solid. I would look for, back into the short-term time frame here. You can see that this recent low of 314.95, 314.93. You can set an anchor VWAP at this most recent low, see if price will respect it, if we get a gap up or anything like that. Otherwise, I would be on the lookout. I have alerts here set in these areas for a pullback, especially near the 21. I'd be interested in that. I'd be even interested in a pullback to this prior supply area and to see if we can get a little bit of another retest. However, I don't want it to go that deep. I wanted to stay at least above this 306.34 to set a higher low, and then ideally we can continue on. But if you want to go back on the 30-minute short-term time frame, setting up a trade here, we can look at this high here, wait for price to tap that, maybe pull back a little bit and then get above, and then that would be, hey, your average participant from this high is now within the green. They're afloat, and they at that point in time, these shorts are pressured on. All right, so ideally these weekly recaps are beneficial for you. If you like it, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, comment below, engage. I always like ideas as well from you guys to see how you are viewing things, just to get a bigger picture. So like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Here is some economic data coming this week, especially on Tuesday. We have home existing sales. We have core inflation rates on Wednesday. Thursday, we have housing and building permits. And then Friday, we have PCE. So we have, and JOLTS job data as well on the 13th. So we have a bit coming up. Here is the earnings. Oracle is pretty important. That is Tuesday after the close. We also have Adobe somewhere in here Thursday after the close. Alta is a pretty important one too, just like general economy measure on Thursday after the close. So we have, mostly earnings seasons is coming to a slowdown, coming to a close. But Oracle, I would say, is a pretty important one that you need to pay attention to this week. All right, again, like, subscribe. Thank you for your time, and we will catch you next week. Make your trade plans, trade safe, and manage your risk. Later.